I assume everybody was drinking.
Yes, ma'am.
A weekend in the outdoors gets wild.
My buddy said that he punched him in the face and broke his nose.
This person.
Yes, ma'am.
And neither were happy campers.
We're cussing each other back and forth.
And he comes through and gets in your face.
He pushed me, and then I pushed him back.
And then what happened?
It was kind of chest to chest, and I punched him.
Mr. Hopkins, you broke his jaw.
Judge Judy.
Mr. Cherry, it is your claim that the defendant assaulted you, and that was in May of last year. As a result of that, you had a fractured jaw.
Yes,
the
ma'am.
defendant says this was a free-for-all brawl at a party. So you want to tell me about the night of May 4th of last year?
So we went up to Riggins a day before the rodeo. It was
We were at where?
Riggins, Idaho, Shorts Bar, campground.
How many people were there?
There was like 20 people in our group.
And how long do you know Mr. Hopkins?
I met him earlier that day.
For the first time?
Yes, ma'am.
Was he within the group of 20?
No, he had his own group that he was there with.
How many people were you with, Mr. Hopkins?
Just me and Clayton at the time.
Were you staying over in the campgrounds?
Yeah,
And you?
Yes, ma'am.
How had you met him earlier that day?
I didn't meet him earlier that day.
I met him earlier that day at my buddy Mac campsite.
How did you meet him?
We were out in front of my buddy's camper,
Yes.
and he walked up with a bottle of sangria, and we were all hanging out and joking around and everything.
You don't remember that?
No, that didn't happen.
Okay. I assume everybody was drinking.
Yes, ma'am.
So you say you met him earlier that day, and continue.
So as the night went on, I think I had a few beers that night, and
I'm sure you had a few beers that night.
yes, ma'am. So I heard he had gotten in a fight, so I walked up to him when I saw him walking past the campground, and I stuck my hand out and asked him if he was all right. And his buddy hit me on the left side, and then he punched me on my right side. And then his buddy hit me again on the left.
It sounds so not plausible to me. So you had heard this stranger that you had met earlier had gotten into a fight, and for some reason you saw him and went up to him to extend your hand, and his friend punched you and then he hit you.
Yes, well, earlier that day we were hanging out, and then after that happened, I walked back to my campsite where I heard that one of the guys from his group, claimed to be him, had knocked out my buddy Joey. And then a couple minutes after that happened, my buddy Welty came up to me with a broken nose and blood running down his face and his shirt, said that he punched him in the face and broke his nose.
This person.
Yes, ma'am.
So you went up to him just to shake his hand?
Yes, ma'am. I didn't know who he got in the fight with beforehand. I just heard that he got in a fight, and we had met earlier that day and we were hanging out, so I wanted to make sure he was okay.
I don't believe that. No. That didn't, yeah. Mr. Cherry.
Yes, ma'am.
There has to be a better story than that, sir. Has to be a better story. If what you want me to believe is you want this face, this person, to believe that the defendant that you heard, because I'm not accepting it as the truth, but this is what your story you're telling me, that you heard that he assaulted two of your friends.
I didn't know the first one.
And one was your friend who came up to you all bloody. And then you saw him and walked up to him with an extended hand to shake his hand.
No, so I didn't
that's-
know that my friend had gotten in a fight with him earlier until our little dispute had already happened. And then another friend of mine came up to me after that happened again and then told me about it.
Go. I'm listening to you.
Oh, well, okay. So me and Clayton were walking around
Clayton and I were walking around.
Clayton and I were walking around the campsite, and there's like a
And you were drinking. You
No,
had been
we weren't.
drinking. Well, you
I
had
would-
been drinking. There's no question you had been drinking. How old are you?
20.
20. Nobody goes to a campground prior to a rodeo for a sleepover.
Well, I
just-
live in Riggins, and I have a lot of.
I don't care. So take your hands out of your pockets. If you're trying to tell me that you weren't drinking, I don't believe it.
Okay.